Hey, good day, YouTube. Whatever time it is where you are. Hey, just checking in real quick. Midday, midweek update check in. Since I don't have a very good internet connection right now, having to upload this, and this isn't really even news, but I'll call it news, I guess. But just a couple articles that came up that I wanted to comment on and throw your way if you wanted to check them out. Um, so I'll put the links in the description box as well as per normal news updates. But this is via Zero Hedge, and I found them particularly interesting. There's one here. The Federal Reserve has done a great job destroying the middle class. You can't say it any better than that. And the ultimate goal of communism is to destroy the middle class so that you have a lower and a controlling class. So this is pretty good one. Check out. It quotes the what's the article? This comes from the via the Gold Telegraph. And it gives some good charts and graphs about how the recovery, as it's been termed, has really been lost on the average, as what we would call the average American, middle class, etc. over the last few years. And this graph is showing some of the spending of that, and a lot of that, obviously, you can hypothesize that that a lot of that is a lot of the stimulus and the bank stimulus and bailouts and everything that went into certain groups got spent at those top levels, and inflation kind of held everybody else back from really getting ahead. But this is just spending. We have there essentially isn't a savings rate, so it's hard to compare those. But quick chart of locations and the percentage of salary needed to be in the top 50% of earners. Interesting. The wage gap, as it's described as income inequality, however you want to term it, but wages are basically not increasing for what they call here the 50th percentile, the average, while the 95th percentile is skyrocketed up, as you can see. And at the bottom it quotes, finishes off, wealth effect equals total bust, but that's what happens in centrally planned economies. The central bank getting its way. The experiment of prolonged zero interest rates has destroyed savers and rewarded reckless spenders who have helped push household debt to unprecedented levels. So check that out. I thought that was pretty interesting. Another article out of Zero Hedge. Every kingdom divided against itself has fallen. This is a good article, just basically seeing where we are in the state of America, going back to the quote from the Bible, Matthew 12:22-28. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or household divided against itself will not stand. Abraham Lincoln kind of twisted that a little bit, made it his own. A house divided against itself cannot stand. And then last week, the Washington Post ran the headline, "We need to go big in Syria. North Korea is watching." There's stories now coming out that North Korea has been doing talks behind the headlines with representatives from the U.S. We'll see how that goes. And it goes on to talk about here, like, North Korea is watching. You know what they see? It sees a house divided. It sees that an America that is divided against itself as it was prior to the Civil War. An America that elects a president and then initiates multiple investigations against him They keep it going indefinitely. America, where hatred of one's fellow countrymen and women has become the norm. An America that has adopted a Shakespearean theater of its political system, where all norms of civil conversation have been long been thrown out the window. Venomous gossip and backstabbing have become accepted social instruments in America, where anything goes as long as it sells. Yeah, I don't think we can disagree with that too much. Interesting, and here they quote a Chinese newspaper, a line from the Chinese newspaper: "A weak country has no diplomacy. As 100 years have passed, China is no longer that China, but the world is still that world." Just saying that basically China has gotten stronger than the rest of the world, as they have not gotten stronger. So that's a interesting line. And on down here it quotes Paul Craig Roberts: "The Russians know that they can, at will, within a few minutes, sink the entire U.S. fleet, destroy every U.S. airship and ship in the Middle East and within range of the Middle East, completely destroy all of Israel's military capability, and wipe out the military of the two-bit punk state of Saudi Arabia." And it goes on, the writer here, "I have written this before, there's a big difference between the way how America sees and treats its military and how Russia does it. A difference that explains how Russia can, with 1/10 of American defense spending, still be militarily superior, or at least make any wars against it unwinnable." And that's primarily defensive war on their part. Obviously, they're not going to be expanding, but fighting on their own turf within their own short supply lines, they're not to be dealt with. Would be rough to be dealt with. So that's a interesting article here. Check it out. It's a pretty long one. It goes on. Wait, I guess it is right there. Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation. So it finishes off. As we would suspect we would be. And finally, I'll just, again, it's going to be short. Finally, one that, I mean, you couldn't quote this any better. This is out of the Miami Herald, actually. I think people have been saying this for years, and the newspapers are catching up, I guess. Government versus God. People are less religious when government is bigger, research says. Well, we've been saying it for years that people have put government in the place of God for decades. I know we've talked about this on chats and stuff. But I guess they actually did research on it, and they're saying that it's an exchange model where people are worshiping government now over God, and that now they get health care, education, and welfare. They're less likely to turn to a divine power for help, according to the theory. And then it asks the question, are people more likely to drop religion in places where governments provide more services and stability? And they crunched the numbers and found that better government services were in fact linked to lower levels of strong religious beliefs. These findings held true in states across the U.S. and in countries around the world, putting their faith in fallible men. It quotes another article, "Religion is an exchange system. The interchangeability of God and government in a provide a role," published April 12th in the Personality and Social Psychology Bulletin. And the rest to the guy internet. I'm not internet. Oh, wait a second. Hold up. Quotes the two authors of this study. They also found a staggered link between the government services and offer and levels of religiosity in a given state. It goes on. It's something. Go check this article out if you're interested. But we've long supposed and hypothesized about the replacement of government in America in particular in this way. And I can't believe they just got on to researching what we've been talking about for years. But let's check those out. Just thought I'd check in, folks. We'll see you later in the week. I think we'll be able to do the Saturday morning news update as per schedule. More to follow, but that's the plan right now. So y'all have a good rest of your week. Live free.